Good afternoon and welcome back. I'm Marcus Peter. As usual, a tremendous joy for me to be joined by a dear friend, a mentor. She's been a spiritual mother figure in a lot of ways. That's Dr. Monica Miller. She is the director of Citizens for Pro-Life Society, one of the strongest pro-life advocates in the country, arguably in the world. She is also a systematic theologian and a commentator. Monica, thank you for joining us. How are you?
I'm glad to be back with you. Thank you.
So, your recent piece in Catholic World Report.
Right. Okay, well, there are controversies, and God bless our Holy Father, but he did make a statement on the airplane. They have got to stop doing that, all right, where he's getting caught off guard, and then he has to make some sort of a comment, and he was probably very tired coming back from Africa. So he was asked about the German church. And I think we just need to be frank and honest. The German church is very messed up. A lot of bishops advocating ordination of women to the priesthood, the blessing of couples in irregular unions. There's some of the bishops advocating for a married priesthood. Okay, so this bishop, I think archbishop actually, might actually be a cardinal, Reinhard Marx, recently within the last few weeks, has issued a policy, I guess you could call it, that he will permit the blessing of homosexual couples. Okay, and based on a document that came out earlier in the month of April, actually just about a month ago, really, and the Pope was asked on that plane by a reporter, how does this affect the unity of the Catholic Church? Which I thought was kind of an interesting jump, because this reporter didn't ask, what do you think about, Marx's decision, but that this will affect the unity of the Catholic Church, okay? And the Pope tried... I think partly maybe because he's trying to avoid a schism with Germany. So he downplayed the Church's Catholic sexual ethics and said that our unity is not based on that. And other more important social justice causes and so on, or Catholic moral teachings have priority. Well, I've done a lot of thinking on this particular subject of the relationship between gender and the covenant, the covenant of redemption. So I thought I would put my theological expertise to work in making a statement that indeed, at least very arguably, though I would go further than that, but at least very arguably, Catholic sexual ethics have priority. And why? Because it's not just about sexual behavior, whether it's adultery or a couple living together without marriage or homosexual couples or whatever, but male and female sexuality has a transcendent sacramental meaning that's tied to the ethics, that's tied to your behavior, your sexual behavior. And so I wanted to speak to that in my article for Catholic World Report, and because gender, I don't see how anybody can escape chapter 5 of the letter to the Ephesians, okay, where St. Paul jumps over all of sacred history and goes back to Genesis chapter 2, and he pulls forward Genesis chapter 2, verse 24. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and his mother and cling to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. And then he gives you the ultimate exegesis. This is a great mystery, for it refers to Christ and the church. Okay, what's the this? It's the one flesh unity of the original couple, which teaches, what is it saying? It's saying that from the beginning, and that's a capital B because that's a theological category, from the beginning, God intended, when he created the human race, male and female, he intended that male and female sexuality be sacramental signs of the covenant, the way that he himself is in relationship to his people. That Jesus, it's not that Jesus taught, tossed a coin, heads I'll be male, tails I'll be female.
Right.
Right. I had to come as one or the other. He intended to come as bridegroom to his church. And the church is spoken of all through sacred history, all through sacred tradition as a woman. She is in relation to her Lord as bride. And so all baptized women image what the church is in relationship to her Lord. And so that's why I argued that male and female sexuality is broader than just what is your behavior, okay? What are you doing with your body sexually? And so there was that's basically the essence of my article.
In no way is this a defense of what's happening in Germany, but I do have to ask the question, have they become more catalyzed owing to the waves caused by fiducia supplicans?
Oh, absolutely. I absolutely. They're taking advantage of that document, of that the dicastery document that did say that homosexual couples could be blessed. All right, now I know. All right.
Would you mind if I jumped in real quick?
Sure, of course.
So for our listeners, fiducia supplicans was one of the documents, a declaration that came out of the dicastery for Doctrine of Faith, and it was the first time in documented history that the term couples was used to refer to homosexual relationships and whatnot. So it does use relationships and couples and calls for the blessing of the couples and relationships, not just the individuals.
Well, and then you had Father James Martin immediately jumping on that with a photo op in the New York Times, literally the next day, showing him blessing a homosexual couple. Now, to his credit, and I say this in my article, Pope Francis did scale back on it. Very clearly, actually. Maybe it was, once the toothpaste is out of the tube, but in his 60 Minutes interview, he was very clear that we are not talking about, the church is not approving the blessing of homosexual same-sex marriage couples, whatever, but the individuals. And he was very clear about that. But like I say, once the document needs to be scrapped, okay, it's a horrible document, and the Catholic Church is big enough that it'll survive it, right? As it has survived a lot of other things, but no question that the German Church is taking advantage of the language.
So, the document notwithstanding, though, the German Church has, like you mentioned, Pope Francis not only scaled back the DDF, then issued a second document to provide further guidelines and clarification of what they meant and whatnot. The German Church isn't even abiding by the clarifications.
No, it's not. I mean, I do say in my article, hopefully I'm not over, dramatizing the situation, but I think at least a case could be made that the German Church, at least a large part of it, is schismatic at this point. And really, Rome needs to take care of it. This is a church that's a rogue church, and it is very, very serious.
So we've got just about a minute left in this segment, but we're rounding off. I'm talking with Dr. Monica Miller. She is Director of Citizens for Pro-Life Society, theologian and commentator, and she is addressing a recent statement made by the Holy Father, Pope Leo XIV, in a charitable attempt to try to bring the present German synodal path into some kind of union with the church, because the problem is the German synodal way right now, the German synodal method, whatever you want to call it, is quite frankly going off the rails, particularly as it pertains to the sacramental dualism of man and woman, and therefore the dignity of the human person in terms of marriage and the family. They want to rewrite all of that, which violates the perennial magisterium of any papacy. Continuing on the other side of the break, stay tuned. I'm Marcus Peter. Good afternoon and welcome back. I'm Marcus Peter. I'm talking with Dr. Monica Miller, Director of Citizens for a Pro-Life Society, theologian, author, and commentator. And we are talking about clarifying not just Pope Leo XIV's statements on the duality of sexes and therefore sacramentality of marriage and the family, but also what's happening with the German church. Monica, let's pick up by you wanting to share the wisdom of St. Augustine on the matter.
Yes, exactly. I love this quote. I've quoted it in two of my books, Sexuality and Authority in the Catholic Church and the Authority of Women in the Catholic Church. And seeing how our Holy Father is an Augustinian priest, right? This is just so beautiful. And this quotation from St. Augustine, it was in his commentary on Psalm 127. Mm-hmm. And again, springboarding off of what we talked about earlier with St. Paul's exposition on Ephesians chapter 2, verse 24, we're talking about a nuptial pair. So, why is sex important? And gender, okay, why is it important? So here's this fantastic quote from St. Augustine. But where did he sleep? So he's talking about Jesus. Where did, as the new Adam, okay? As the original Adam was put into a deep sleep, and then from his side, God took a rib and built up into a woman, right, from Adam's rib. So where did Jesus sleep? On the cross. When he slept on the cross, he bore a sign. He fulfilled what had been signified in Adam. For when Adam was asleep, a rib was drawn from him, and Eve was created. So also while the Lord slept on the cross, his side was transfixed with a spear, and the sacraments flowed forth, whence the church was born. For the church, the Lord's bride, was created from his side, as Eve was created from the side of Adam. But as she was made from his side, no otherwise than while sleeping, so the church was created from the side of Jesus, no otherwise than while dying. I just think that is so amazingly great. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. Very few people write like that anymore.
But I put this in my article because, again, to show the importance of sexuality and gender to ecclesiology. This is an ecclesiological statement, mm-hmm. and also a Eucharistic statement. And so for that reason, I'm going to argue that human sexuality does indeed take priority. It's the foundation of our religion and of what the church is and what Jesus is in relation to each other. Yes, we have a beautiful social justice teachings in our faith and charity towards our neighbor, living our lives and bringing Jesus into the public square. But if we don't get this right, mm-hmm. okay, I'm not going to say none of that matters, but it certainly doesn't take priority. Mm-hmm. So that's my argument.
As an Augustinian, if he's thinking about the objective hierarchy of sins, sure, we can make the argument that offenses against charity are of a much graver nature, a graver category of sin than say sins against the flesh. But that doesn't mean, and so like what you're rightly trying to put forth, that doesn't mean that the Holy Father is therefore trying to say this isn't grave or that this doesn't have social bearing. And if anything, from a social bearing perspective, it's hard to talk about the common good and the flourishing of society and human flourishing if you don't acknowledge firstly the primordial sacrament of man and woman, yes, that creates the bedrock for society.
Exactly. And even from natural law, the unity of man and woman is rooted in natural law. You don't have to be a Catholic to see that, mm-hmm. of course. It is the foundation of the primary unit of society. It brings children into the world, and then it creates the family. And the family is not a mere social construct. Mm-hmm. It's not something that is dictated by government. In fact, government is supposed to honor it because it is primordial. Mm-hmm. It is the original community. irrespective of whether we go from natural law into the sacramental truths of our faith.
Now, because of that, would that our Holy Fathers didn't feel the need, like you mentioned, to give airplay in interviews? In fact,
that's just got to stop. It's so imprudent, and this is the Pope. Okay, people, listen to him when Francis and now Leo, when they speak, and when you're making these off the cuff remarks. This is something that takes reflection. Mm-hmm. It takes prayer. You have to ponder your answer, because this is so essential, so important. What you're going to be saying about human sexuality and the unity of the Catholic Church. Mm-hmm. So. This is, I hope somebody will be saying, Leo, don't do this anymore.
Now, at the risk of people calling you and I both Pope-splainers, I think one of the things we need to acknowledge in charity is that the Francis papacy entered into the social media era. Right? Benedict was, so Paul VI, John Paul were the popes of the media evangelization era.
Right.
Benedict became the pope of the digital era, the internet and whatnot. But then Francis onwards, it's been predominantly social media content, which is why the worst and the best were just proliferated.
Right.
In that sense, do we owe our Holy Fathers some kind of debt of charity, but also tremendous prudence on our part in terms of how we consume and disseminate information?
Well, I agree with that, Marcus, but it's not going to work. It just doesn't work. Emails go out, in Instagrams, and nobody is going to take the time to reflect. Okay, it's just not going to happen. So, considering that. The Vatican just needs to be ultra careful about what it says and what and to what it is going to what it's going to make a response, or to what it's going to respond to, and otherwise you get your foot stuck in the mud. we just can't afford that. So,
and that's disheartening, because we do have to presume this. I guess, provisional lack of prudence on the part of those who consume social media. And so there has to be a responsibility and care for words.
Yes.
So considering that, when we look at what's going on in Germany, again, Pope Leo is being very charitable. He's being very well-meaning about this. But it's very clear that the German church they don't want to play ball the same way. Can you please speak to that?
Well, they are on a course that I think at this point is so far removed from true Catholic unity that I'm not the Pope. Okay, so I'm not I don't wear those shoes, but I think that the German Church needs to be disciplined. Okay, it needs to be corrected. Let's put it that way. Because it's a train that's on its own rails, and it's going at breakneck speed, and there needs to be serious clarifications. And frankly, maybe some of these bishops just need to be removed. I mean, they removed Bishop Strickland over there in Tyler, Texas. I mean, over what? Nobody really even knows exactly. Maybe something having to do with the
certain statements he made about the Francis papacy.
Well, there was that, and then I think his advocacy of the Tridentine Rite and so on. But that's minor compared to what's going on in the German Church. So I pray for Pope Leo every day, and I really want to urge listeners of Ave Maria Radio to do the same, and especially when I'm at Mass. I pray for him every day.
So, just about a minute left in this segment. I want to ask for you to share a few closing insights about how us, the laity, ought to think about Pope Leo's recent statements, and to also say, well, off-the-cuff statements are not magisterially binding.
Of course they're not. Nonetheless, the Pope throws the weight of his papacy behind whatever he does. It's an enormous burden. So again, we need to be praying for our Holy Father. I hope people will read my article because I really do intend to teach something that's super important to the Catholic faith and to what it means to be human. We're in a cultural moment where thinking about gender is very confused. And if the Catholic Church can offer any insight, it has to do with what is the glory, what is the dignity of what it means to be male and female.
Are we seeing a turn back in the overt push of the general LGBTQ movement? Are we seeing some sanity grip the public sphere in some ways?
Maybe a little. I think there has been some scaling back of major corporations with the DEI approach to things, not displaying the gay flag as they were doing. We see a little bit of that. But the whole problem with what's going on can be said in one word: Gnosticism. Right. This is the heresy that will be there 5 minutes before the second coming of Jesus. Okay, it's this division between spirit and matter is evil, and spirit is good, and they are opposed. So this is the key to the whole shooting match.
My guest has been Dr. Monica Miller. She is Director of Citizens for a Pro-Life Society. We've been talking about some recent comments that Pope Leo XIV made pertaining to the duality of male and female and how that affects sacramentality of marriage and how that affects society and the common good in general. Stay tuned. I'm Marcus Peter.